Hello there. So it's a Monday evening. It is very hot in the UK. That was a green woodpecker then, that noise. So I've come down the barn later in the evening to try and avoid the heat. It's a bit of a heat wave in the UK. It's, think of anywhere in the world, it's a little bit hotter than that. This evening, all I'm going to be achieving is getting the get the exhaust manifold off, and however many broken studs I've got, I know I've got at least one, remove that with the welder. I'd just like to say a great big thank you to the team at TR Autos and helping me create this video. TR Autos can be found in Yeovil, southwest of England, and are a Saab specialist. They can be found working on things ranging from classic 99 turbos all the way up to the last generation 95s. Not only that, he does other maker models too. The main way TR Autos has helped me out over the years is parts. Be it genuine new parts from Sweden, new old stock crankshafts and stuff like that, which I was very lucky to get hold of, to routine head gaskets, service parts. I've even got a little story where my scimitar alternator failed. That has got a B234 in it as well. And it failed one evening, and Tommy even put aside a brand new alternator for me and put it out in a storage bin and told me where it was, and I got it back on the road that evening. Big thanks to the guys at TR Autos, Southwest leading Saab specialist. Stud extractor, as you rotate in the loosened direction, it tightens down onto the stud and does it. Right, so I've taken the end cover off a stud extractor because I find it interesting. Maybe you guys will too. So you've got 3 rollers inside it, and each side of the roller you've got a ramp. Okay, so I'll put my bolt inside. These ones will work in either direction, so they will tighten and loosen them. As I undo it, the roller tries to ride up the ramp, so then it exerts pressure into the stud. It does that all 3 ways round, and it locks. Oh bloody hell. Found all the pieces, it's fine. Well, that might be interesting to show how it works. Back to the cars. I doubt you're supposed to use an impact gun on them. Alright, so the only broken stud is the one that was broken already. As you can see, there's a few dodgy attempts at drilling it. That was when the engine was out for the timing chain. And if you look at this, this is the one that is the offending stud. And if you can see, you can't quite get at it because of the manifold. To save risking snapping multiple studs, I left it as it was, and now is the time to fix it properly. So to fix it properly, you weld a nut over it, which welds to the stud, and then once you've welded that, you weld a nut to it, and then you gun that off and the stud comes out. It takes a few attempts sometimes, but let's give it a go. it is. Threads intact. Happy days. Right, just had a quick go with the scouring pad to clean up the head slightly. I was kind of hoping I wouldn't need to skim this because it's not overheated, so it definitely wouldn't have warped. But there is quite a lot of like corrosion in it, where maybe it's been run on straight water rather than coolant for a while and it's ate into the aluminium. Like here, for example. Now that shouldn't be too much of a concern because coolant ways, they don't run much pressure. They should be fine. But anything that encroaches on this firing ring area, that is going to be a problem. If you see, this is quite a bit of corrosion. It might be difficult to see in the camera. There's a bit of depth to that. And that does go through the firing ring seal. So that seal is going to be compromised. That is probably why the head gasket is let go where it has. And another thing, on number 2 cylinder where it's burnt through the firing ring, no idea when that happened. Simultaneous failure, I don't know, but if I move the gasket out of the way, you can see where it's like, I guess, like scorched the head slightly. Now it's not much, but it's definitely there. And again, firing ring. I'm going to take this to a local engineering shop and see if he thinks a light skim will get rid of them, and I'll have a good smooth clamping surface again. Let's see. Okay, that previous bits of footage, they were filmed a good few weeks back. What has happened in the meantime, I took the head to the engineering shop. They decided that rather than just skim it flat, they'd try and aluminium weld the corroded area, the bit in the firing ring I was concerned about, and then they'd skim it back after that. So I've been and got the head, that's all been completed. I've got the 900 back on the ramp. So yeah, let's crack on with it. Just run a big flat piece of steel with some sandpaper on it to keep it nice and flat, and just cleaned it up a bit. The exhaust manifold to head flange was blowing. I know from previous experience that these cast Saab manifolds can warp. Not sure if the warping happens first and then they blow, or they blow and then the warping is exaggerated. Either way, I had to sort out the exhaust manifold, make it flat again. Previously, a mate did it with a belt sander. Don't have access to that anymore, so I used the mill. Here's a bit of footage from that. After the first pass, you can see how not flat it is. Basically pulled in on all the lugs. Now add a bit more depth to the cut and go again. I am happy with that. Okay, so one thing you want to be aware of with doing a head gasket job is that the threaded holes where the head studs, head bolts go, they're blind holes on most cars, basically meaning it's like a well. And as you pull the head off, coolant and oil goes everywhere and they fill up. Now, fluid doesn't compress, so if you chuck the head on and then you tighten these bolts up, it's going to go down, it's going to try and compress that fluid, which won't. And the old wives' tale is that as you tighten that bolt down, you can actually crack the block with the force, the thread pushing on the uncompressible fluid. What I like to do, find something about the right size, push it in to displace a bit of fluid, and then get a clean head bolt and run it down by hand and sort of give it a wiggle as you go in, and you'll see, well, I can see, I don't know if you can, apologies for the lighting, you can see coolant or fluid coming around the outside of it. So basically run it in, clean it up as it's going. Then you can feel the bolt bottom out. Pull it out. Clean the threads up and you're golden. So what I'm going to do is around this area, every single Saab engine I've ever had or owned or worked on has always got oil all around this area because of this joint here. So what I'm going to do is run some sealant around that. And when I did the chain as well, same again, sealant around the top of that. Now the sealant which Saab use is this stuff, Loctite 518. Very expensive, it's like 30 quid. So something I've always wondered, right, is that this special type of sealant is called anaerobic, and it basically needs the absence of oxygen before it'll harden. And apparently the good thing about that is that if it does overspill when you're like sealing your sump on or your front cover, all the stuff that splodges out the side and drips into your oil doesn't harden and therefore doesn't block your pickup. Well, I've never swum in oil before, but I'm pretty sure I won't be able to breathe, which to me means in oil there's no oxygen, which means this anaerobic sealant is going to harden in oil the same as anything like an RTV sealant. Please discuss. Sorry, I just put the head gasket on without showing you that I've put sealant everywhere. You're going to have to trust me, I have. I'm going to put some extra on this bit as well. Let's go get the head, it's in the back of the corner. Okay, so this is the refaced head. I will be honest, I wish I'd just given it a go myself, especially now I've got the mill, got my own TIG welder, etc. I'm not a brilliant welder, but I like it giving things like this a go. Welding alley is hard work, especially old alley because it's full of like impurities. Quite a lot pitting as all the old crap has bubbled out in the metal. It's just outside the firing ring though, so hopefully it'll be fine. As with most car stuff, if you look at different places, you get different answers. So for torque specifications, I'm going with the information sheet that came with the gasket set. So this engine's actually a 1989, even though the car's 97, because I swapped it in. So this applies to me after 88, and it's a Torx bolt. So yeah, 60 Newton meters in this order. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So like in a working from the center outwards, 60 Newton meters, and then 80 Newton meters, then 90 degrees. I've run them all down by hand, and I've just checked that the gasket is tight, because if you get caught on the dowels, you can totally balls this bit up. I'm going to fit the camshafts now. Something I find quite interesting to note is that the front end of the camshaft has got like a conventional like oil supply hole, right, for that journal. And then further along the camshaft it doesn't. What you have further along the camshaft is these dark bolts, and if you look at them, they are in fact hollow with an oil supply hole at the side. Hollow oil supply hole. Oil gets pumped up through the hole at the bottom, out the side, and then into the cap, yeah, through this slot. Now if you were ever unsure which way around these go, I always like to use a syringe, right, to find out stuff like this. So if I try and backfeed this hole, I can feel I'm just pushing air from around the threads, right? That hole, that bolt goes nowhere. However, if I do it to the other side, I can hear air coming out down there. This has currently got no oil in it, so I reckon I'm listening to an empty oil pickup. I reckon if there was oil in it, I'd hear it bubble away. So that tells me these bolts are connected to the oil pickup and these bolts do nothing. And if you were to get your oil supply bolt on the wrong side, you'd effectively block off all the oil supply to all these caps. And yeah, nothing would transfer from these holes and you'd have no oil supply. Alright, let's see if my idea with the cam sprocket and cable tying the chain in place worked. Potentially. Somebody asked last time in the last video where the little plastic doodah was on the end of the tensioner when I was showing the tensioner off. There it is. I know it's there because I lost it and had to rob one out of my other engine when I did the chain. Right, the problem with Trionic converting these cars, or my setup anyway, is that the crank pulley trigger wheel, if you can see, gets pretty close to the bulkhead and you struggle to get on the crank pulley. So it's a bit of a pain for turning the engine over. So this is what I'm doing. Check the timing's all good. Is barring the flywheel over. About 2 teeth at a time. Right, just done 2 full turns of the crankshaft, 1 full turn of the camshaft. 2 to 1, isn't it? 2 turns crank, 1 turns cam. TDC mark lined back up, which is that white line there. Cam timing marks, which is the cutout on the cam lines up with the V on the carrier, and same down there. And the chain is suitably tensioned. Happy with that. So I was just cleaning up this exhaust manifold turbo flange, and I noticed there is a big restriction in there. Now it's just before this blocked off port. I reckon this probably would have been something like, I don't know, air injection or something like that. I know this one here is for EGR, because my car had an EGR and it's been blocked off. I reckon this was probably something to do with air injection maybe. You know, like that American emission rubbish. And maybe that's there to allow it to like create a venturi or something and impede flow to give like low pressure the other side of it. I think I know enough to know that I know more than Saab, and I'm just going to break that out of the way for more exhaust flow, more power. Woohoo! Much better. Clean that up a bit now. That is a whole lot better. Now if all the Saab experts can get in the comments and tell me how that's really important and I shouldn't have done it, I'd really appreciate it. New studs in place, you can just about see them. New gasket going on. Be aware, it only goes on one way. It looks like it would go on either way, but that hole is very slightly in a different position. whilst I'm in the area and I've got it all apart, for a good while I just run the air filter off the end of the turbo inlet behind the radiator. I know it's not ideal, but I used to run it down here, but then the pipework I robbed to put on the scimitar. Well, being as the scimitar is long-term dead at the minute, I'm going to rob that pipework back and put the air filter back where I had it previously, out the way of the radiator, cold air. Looks a bit like something Scrappy Challenge made, as does all my stuff, but the air filter is now in the wing. I've always been a little bit anxious about the fact that these two are quite close together. People say, just clock the turbo and run the pipes differently. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be that easy and it's going to run into problems. I'm going to build a little heat shield. By build a heat shield, I mean a piece of bent aluminium with one hole in it. That should help. That may just flap around, make horrible noises. Who knows? I'm just making this up. Ooh, but I did trim the corner off. I'm just gonna drop the oil again. This should be empty, but any water or crap which should have drained down over the last few weeks, I don't want it in there. Good job I did. A lot of water in there. Most of my car may be held together with cable ties, but at least I've got 4 bolts in my DI cassette, and that's more than you can say. It's only a matter of time before I kill this car with my stupidity. Right, that bolt down there is loose. And it's under the manifold. Great. Just topped it up with coolant. Hopefully that horrendous top end noise goes away. This car's always been a bit rattly. So, yeah, once it gets warm, I think it'll be alright. So fans just kicked in, coolant levels full, it's middle of the gauge, it's all looking good. Just gonna shut it off in a moment, check for any additional leaks. Plenty of smoke coming off the thing, like the exhaust manifold and the turbo and the downpipe. That's pretty normal, that is. Once you've had like oily handprints over everything, it smokes it back off. Yeah, shut it off in a minute. Make sure there's nothing else leaking out, and then take it for a bit of a test drive. It does seem to be smoking a bit out the exhaust, like blue oil smoke, which I noticed driving behind it in the comma a while back, and I think the turbo's probably on its way out. I would have loved to have sent the turbo off to get rebuilt, but yeah, it's 2022. We can't be doing things like that. You know, times are hard. I've got a lot of stupid toys. Now it's got up to temperature, that noisy tap, it's quiet down. Alright, test drive was successful. Nothing else seems to be leaking after the 5 litres of oil I leaked all over the floor. Nothing else. Coolant temperature is looking good. Only thing of slight concern is the blue smoke at the back. I don't know, that might be residual, but I'd imagine it's the turbo on its last legs and me running this car numerous times with not enough oil pressure because I'm slightly stupid. Anyway, I'm going to end this video here. I'm going to have to edit down about 4 days worth of footage into something watchable. But cheers for watching, and catch you next time, where I think I'm going to be working on the 9000.